Fall's coming, and I feel so cozy in this vest. I'm not hot because I got my arms out, but I am the perfect amount of cozy and warm and comfy and happy. But that's not what this video is about. It's about astrology and Greek mythology and birth charts. Have you heard of them? They're important. They're your matrix code. They matter. Know thyself. But the thing I love about astrology is it corresponds with everything. And this one is going to be about planets in birth charts and planets. But I'm going to break down the planets using Greek mythology, even with all the incest. But I mean, hey, what else were they gonna do? Someone else. It starts out with Uranus and Gaia. So Uranus is the heaven and Gaia is the earth. Heaven and earth were the original mother and father in this Greek mythology. And they had a whole bunch of babies, like Cyclops and giants and Titans and Saturn. So Uranus was worried. There was a prophecy that one of his children would take his throne from him. And, you know, that's terrifying. Can't have that. And, I mean, you know, one of them did, of course. But what he did to try to stop it was he locked all of his children up in Tartarus. And Tartarus is buried deep in the ground. It's a prison buried deep in the earth. He imprisoned his children in their mother. So obviously that hurt. That's unsettling. So she got back at him. She tried to convince her children to castrate him. Because, you know, that's the only way to get someone off their throne, right? Castrate them. They were all too scared, except Saturn. That's Saturn. And he was the youngest, and he did it. She got him out of Tartarus, and he castrated his father with a sickle. Is super badass and awful and wonderful. But Uranus, the original. So in our charts, Uranus is where your originality is and where you want to break away from traditions, which is easy to remember because you just think Uranus and you think originality, original father, originality. And it's you. That's what's in you. That's original. And what is creative. And he rules technology and advancements. When things get better, that's Uranus. The internet, that's Uranus. Okay, stop. Okay, so Saturn. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He is the god of time and karma, which is really interesting because, I mean, I guess karmically karmically we live out our ancestral traumas. And if you think about his father, he did the same thing. He was worried that his children would take his throne away from him. They did. So he, instead of locking them in Tartarus, he ate them. He ate his kids. It was him and Rhea as their children. And Rhea is the goddess of fertility and motherhood. So, again, I believe it was her plotting to get her kids out. Her plotting with Zeus. But that's what happened. Zeus cut himself out. Oh, no. That's not what happened. Zeus didn't cut himself out. Rhea hid Zeus. And then he cut his brothers and sisters out. I almost did that wrong. All right. So, Saturn, god of karma and time. In your chart, it's where it's like, in what way are you responsible? And how is karma going to come back at you? And it's, do you show up on time? That's a Saturn thing. And it's also, in your chart, it like really represents restrictions and challenges. And it's how you get over these challenges that you can move on to the next thing and get the gifts of Saturn. And the gifts of Saturn are very material things. Basically. And just like, I don't know if y'all have heard of a Saturn return. So when you're born, Saturn is in a certain sign. And it takes about 28 years for it to come back to that sign. And that's your Saturn return. And that's when either everything gets wonderful because you're like crossing your T's and dotting your I's and everything, you're happy. If you're not happy, then Saturn will just clear that out for you. And it's can be really rough. He'll just take it all away. You don't like your job? Oh, cool. You're going to get fired. You don't like your partner? You don't want to admit it to yourself? Something's going to happen. And it's going to break. It's the tower. It's being in a building that's on fire and you have to jump. That's Saturn in a big sense. So, Saturn ate his kids. Rhea, his wife, hid Zeus, which is Jupiter. And then he went and he cut out his brothers and sisters. And he had a bunch of them. But we're only really going to focus on Neptune and Pluto. But Zeus, Jupiter, instead of being like his father and his grandfather, so you could say that he broke an ancestral trauma, didn't just eat all his kids and imprison them. He did imprison his father back into Tartarus after he got his brothers and sisters out. But Jupiter, Zeus, oh wait, no, we should come back to Zeus. We're going to go with Neptune, Pluto first. Pluto, because once we get into Jupiter, like, it's going to break down into these because Zeus had a lot of kids. Pluto, which is Hades. So basically when Zeus broke them out, these three, in a sense, drew straws to see who would rule what. And Zeus became the king of the gods. Neptune rules the sea. And Pluto rules the underworld. Hades rules the underworld. He was kind of mad about it. I don't know if y'all saw Hercules, but like, I don't think he was too happy about it. It seemed like maybe that was he drew the short stick. Which is maybe why he married his niece through force. Persephone. Anyways, Pluto, Hades, same thing. Roman, Greek, same thing. Kind of. He rules the underworld. And in your chart, that's going to be all about, I see it as your shadow side. It's one of the ways to get a good, clear look at your shadow side in astrology. It's the things that you don't really like about yourself, but you have to get to know and transform through them to make it beautiful. And that's your golden shadow. You have to take the things you don't like about yourself and learn to love them. And when you love them, you transform them. You kill them and then rebirth them as gold. And it's beautiful. Shadow side gets some crap, but it's one of the most beautiful parts of you. Your shadow side is basically what laughs at a joke. And it's, I mean, you know, Jekyll and Hyde, it's Hyde, but it only really turns into Hyde when you reject it for so long instead of nurturing it. That's your Pluto. My Pluto's in Scorpio. What's this thing? But Pluto, actually, Pluto and Uranus and Saturn, I think Neptune as well, are all generational. So you, when you look at your chart, you want to look more at what house they're in. The sign that they're in is still really important, but it's like a mix of the planet in the sign in which house. And that's going to give you a lot of information about yourself. Like if you've been repressing a lot of things and you kind of can't figure out what it is that's messing your life up, what are you doing wrong? Look at that. All right. So his brother, Neptune, Poseidon, rules the sea. And in your chart, Neptune is going to be, the way I think of Neptune in your chart is like those moments when you have a really strong intuition, but you don't understand why. Like it's really confusing why you're feeling the way that you feel. It's very intuitive, and there's a lot of like illusions, but if you're trusting yourself, it'll become clear. So trust that intuition, even though it doesn't always make sense. You got to trust it. And it's also kind of a thing to work through. Like the things that you're confused about. And it's how you have to use creativity to break yourself from that confusion. It's daydreaming. It's what you want your life to be. And that's fine. You can have that. It doesn't have to be an illusion. But if you don't go at it right, if you don't use some Saturn energy to get what you're dreaming about with your Neptune energy, it's the groundedness and the dream, then it's just going to remain elusive and an illusion and a dream. But hey, you can do it. All right, now we're going to do Zeus. Zeus, it's time. It's time. Jupiter, Zeus. This, kind of the opposite of Saturn. Instead of being restrictive, it's expansive. Jupiter in your chart is kind of Zeus in your chart, you could say, is where you expand and where you have wisdom and it's gifts. And it's kind of like it's how you can make a job out of what you love. It's just the things that you love. It's how you teach. It's philosophical. So whatever sign and whatever house your Jupiter is in is going to tell you the areas in which you will continually expand throughout your life and gain knowledge on and wisdom and have passions about. So, Zeus, slut, had lots and lots of kids. The only kid he had with his wife Hera was Mars. This guy. Aries. Which makes a lot of sense because when you think about the feminine energy of Hera, she is the goddess of marriage, but she's also like super jealous and vengeful, but she never goes after Zeus. She only goes after the women that he has sex with and has kids with, and she'll go after those kids too. But he never really seems to get in trouble. That doesn't seem right to me. But I mean, you would think she would just leave him. He keeps cheating on her. He's the common denominator in her hurt, which causes her jealousy and vengefulness. But whatever. So, Mars is where you are aggressive, where your anger comes from, what you get angry about, and how you fight about things. How you fight, verbally or physically. I say that. I've never been in a fight. Woo! Okay. So it's how you fight and what makes you angry and what's like where you're like really passionate. It's sex. It's that passionate animal just like rah. That was really weak. That's not Mars. But it's that lion roar. It's passionate and angry, which can be fun or it can be a detriment to your life if you are really quick-tempered. That's not going to help. But when you look at Mars in your chart, you get to see what lights your fire and how that burn is. Is it a quick burn? Is it a slow burn? Is it a long flame? Is it a wavy flame? That's Mars. That's your fire. He also had Venus with, I think her name's Dione, or is it Dion? She was, I believe she was a Titan, and she ruled like oracles, and they had Venus together, which is Aphrodite. So I think most people have an idea about Venus, right? Like, it's all love and female. No, I don't like that. That's cold. But it's the love and the beauty, and it's Aphrodite, and it's creativity, and it's, she's laying on the chair with the little cherubs all around her. That's Venus. It's how you love, how you're creative, how you're beautiful, what you see as beautiful. That's Venus. All right. Zeus had, excuse me, Mercury with Maya. Maya was a nymph. And she was from Pleiades. And there is a little bit, it might have been a different Maya, but she kind of rules springtime. But Zeus had Mercury with Maya, And Mercury in your chart, oh, Mercury is Hermes, the Greek. Greek is Hermes, Roman is Mercury. And he was the one, and he had the little wings on his shoes. Or were they on his head? Wings were involved. Mercury in your chart is how you communicate, how you write. It's travel, and it's mostly how you communicate, whether that's verbally or technology. It can actually affect how your voice sounds. Like, it's hard to explain. It's like I would know a Mercury voice if I heard it, maybe. But it does affect your voice. It's your voice, it's how you talk, it's how you speak, it's how you write, how you travel. And we have it's a Mercury retrograde. It happens 3 times a year. Is when it kind of goes backwards. Or it looks like it's going backwards. Might be an illusion. But it's going backwards. Basically, it's Mercury retrograde is when communication gets murky. When travel plans get murky. Everything is murky and everyone is like, don't sign any papers or contracts. Don't. You could wait. That's Mercury in your chart. That's how you talk. And then he had the sun and the moon. The sun, the moon, with Leto. And the sun is Apollo, and the moon is Artemis. And the moon kind of gets 3 goddesses. But she's, I mean, really? Isn't that a mess up? There's only 2 goddesses. Makes me kind of sad. That's why I make a point to bring up the mothers. Because there is feminine in everything. Just like there's masculine in everything. It's fine. So the sun in your chart, that's the one. When someone is like, hey, yo, what your sign is? That's the one they're asking about. That's your sun. That's your ego. And that's kind of how you present yourself. It's your light, you know? And it's more of a masculine energy, which in our society is glorified, so it's the one that we put forth more. And so that's why that's the one we ask about. That's why that is the one that we ask about. What's your sign? We all know about that. The moon is feminine. That's Artemis. I think they're twins. Which they ought to be. And she's a hunter, which is cool. But the moon in your chart, your moon sign, is more about your emotions. It's your anima. It's also a bit of that shadow side, which shadow is inherently feminine. That's probably why it gets knocked so much. So it's how you feel. It's how you feel about things. Like my moon is in Aquarius, so I don't feel anything until I do because I'm Cancer rising. So I just think I don't feel anything until I can get to it logically. You know? So where your moon is your feelings and just how you feel and your emotions. So, yeah. I hope this helps. I hope it helps you remember the planets and what they mean. So when you go through your own birth chart, you can look at each planet and be like, oh yeah, My Venus is in Leo, so I like to look good, and I like to be with someone who thinks I look good, and I like to spend money on things that are beautiful. Or you can just go through your chart, know your planets, and be able to know yourself a little bit better. That's the hope. That's the goal. Thank you.